Hey guys, I'm Brian, and this is Smokey Uncuffed. Today I'm going to hit on a topic that, as law enforcement, you get asked a ton. How fast can I go before I get stopped? How much over the speed limit can I go before y'all stop me? It's a very hard one to tackle. I mean, just being honest about it. When I worked, it was simple. I would simply say, well, if the speed limit says 55, at 56 you're speeding, and I just leave it there. Or at 70, 71 you're speeding, and leave it there. Because there's no good way to answer that while you're doing the job. So now that I'm retired, just being honest, it varies from officer to officer. Generally, how we work speed is at our discretion. They don't give you a set number and say, okay, it's 6 over, you're stopping them and writing them tickets. Not how it works at all. So I'm just going to drive around today and give you some examples of different roads. I had different set speeds of my own, and at some roads you could drive faster, some roads you couldn't. And I'll just explain it as we go and kind of try to break it down for you. And of course, I'm going to start this video off with my normal disclaimer. This is not considered legal advice. If you get a ticket, you go to court, and you show them this video, I can promise you it will hold about as much water as a bucket that's bottomless. So don't consider this legal advice. If you need real legal advice, consult an attorney, and they will give you much better legal advice than I can. This is only a view from the law enforcement side of how we work things, or how I worked things. I can't talk for everybody, and that's all it should be looked at as. Okay, so as you can see, this is a county road. It has no markings on it whatsoever. It's one lane each direction, no shoulders, just bar ditches. In this county we're in right now, the speed limit is just a given 40 miles per hour unless otherwise posted on any county road. So on a road like this, if I were to be driving down it and you were doing 6, 8 miles an hour over the speed limit, I'm liable to stop you. I mean, there is no place to go if something goes wrong. And that's not to say I'm going to write you a ticket, but at the very least, you're going to get a warning out of it. So now we're on a state highway, again with no shoulders. It is marked. It's a little bit wider road. So as a general rule, on a road like this with no shoulders, at about 6, 7 miles an hour, I'd start looking at stopping you, because again, there's no place to go, but it is paved and you are liable to retain more control of your vehicle. Somewhere between 8 and 10 miles an hour, I'd start looking at tickets. I mean, because there is very little room for error on a road this narrow. Okay, so right here we're in a school zone now, and you saw the flashing sign. It said 25 miles an hour. This is the exception to the rule. When I was in town, you're speeding in a school zone, I've got you. I mean, that's a place where there is absolutely no tolerance. Local police work this area a lot because we're in a school zone. It says 25 miles an hour. It's giving you a warning sign with flashing lights. They expect you to drive it. Simply because in this small town, we do not have closed campus. So around lunchtime, these kids can wander across the road to the grocery store, get something to eat. They can walk downtown, get something to eat. And it's just for the safety of the kids. Okay, as you can see now, we're on a divided 4-lane highway. This is just out west of the small town I live in. And so far right now, we're in a 55 zone. Out here just outside of town, it turns to 70 miles an hour. So with this being a divided 4-lane with shoulders, as a general rule, I wouldn't even look at stopping you until you were doing 10 miles an hour in the opposite direction. Meaning if all this traffic coming towards me, if it was doing 80 in the 70, I would then look at crossing the median to stop you. And you can see the median out there. I mean, it's not too hard to cross that in a car, and we can get across it pretty quick. It's just one of those things you have to learn. So, would that be a ticket at 10 over? Not necessarily. Probably 12 over on a divided 4 lane? Yeah, I'm probably going to be looking at a citation. Simply because I have gone to the trouble of cutting a median, which is unsafe, jumping out in traffic at a low speed, which is unsafe, and chasing you back down. Because rarely when people saw us coming across the median, do you just pull over and stop. Everybody assumes we're going after the other guy, and they're not going to stop and wait on us. So with that point, whenever we do cut medians and come after you, people often won't slow down or stop. They just assume you're going after somebody else or you're doing something else, and they don't want to admit that they're the ones doing anything wrong. So by knowing that, you need to know this: the longer you make us chase you, the more likely you are to get a citation. The harder you make me work for it, you're going to earn it. I mean, that's just kind of it's not taught, but it's just kind of a general rule that we go by, an unwritten rule that you make me come out here and chase you another 3/4 mile, whatever, mile and a half, yeah, you're probably getting the ticket. I mean, don't make us work for it. You know you're doing wrong. You see us coming after you, just pull over. It makes life a lot simpler on both of us, and I'm more likely to give you a break. What we're on now is called the Chickasaw Turnpike. It's a 2-lane turnpike. It has shoulders all the way down it. And I was looking, I'll find one here before long and try to point it out. There are signs on this that say no tolerance. Their speed limits are expected to be followed to the limit of the law. But now with that said, our limit's still going to be wavering from that, because if we stopped everybody doing 1 over, you wouldn't make it 2 miles down any given road. And honestly, I don't know anybody that writes tickets at 1 over. Okay, so you saw the sign. It said 65 max speed limit and 40 minimum speed limit. Point being, if you're going less than 40, you're impeding the normal and reasonable flow of traffic. And we did stop that kind of, or I did stop that kind of stuff. Didn't always write a citation, because generally, I mean, it was elderly people just driving real slow. But it is a traffic hazard. So with that sign saying no tolerance, did I have tolerance? Well, absolutely. I mean, the only difference is on this road, even though it had shoulders and it's 2-lane, at 8 over I'd stop you. More than likely I'd write you a warning. At 10 over it was hard ticket. That was just kind of a given rule that I went by, because it is no tolerance, and I've still been lenient, but you're still not doing the speed limit. So I'm sure many of you are thinking exactly what we were thinking whenever they made this into a turnpike. It's a 2-lane highway. Turnpike's usually something that's wider, has a little higher speed limit, and the traffic's regulated. Traffic is regulated on this turnpike. I mean, once you get past mile marker 5, there's no way on or off. I just got off of an off-ramp, and it goes for like 17 miles, this whole turnpike. I wish I could explain it. It's the smallest and only 2-lane turnpike I've ever been on. And so in a nutshell, yeah, we worked it, and we tried to lower our tolerance a little bit on it. We basically worked it like a 2-lane, or I basically worked it like a 2-lane highway with shoulders. I mean, because that's basically all it was to me. Now then, I have lowered my tolerances when there was just nothing happening and I couldn't find anything, and lowered the warning down to 6, and would start thinking about tickets a day. Yeah, this is an odd turnpike. I've never ran across one anywhere else that was this small. I don't know what the exact reasoning was for it, other than a little revenue coming from a college town to the interstate. And I mean, it produces it because there's a ton of people that drive it. So now we're gonna drive down just a plain old two-lane highway with shoulders and just talk about it for a minute. Okay, so right here's a good example. This has shoulders, both sides. So again, my tolerance on this, my tolerance would be 8 over, I'm gonna stop you for a warning. 10 to 12 over, I'm gonna start looking at a citation. It's just because, again, you're in close proximity to the other traffic coming at you. You don't need to be just really exceeding the speed limit. So basically what I've done here is just making a big loop. I mean, I'm coming back in the north side of Sulphur now, and that little turnpike just goes up to the northeast of it. And I just took the first exit, came right back into town. And as you can see, this is still a divided two-lane highway with shoulders on it going into town. And the next question we always get asked is, how about city streets? Now, rarely were we driving up and down city streets unless we was going to a particular home, or we were backing up a police department on a call they needed help with. And in this town, city streets are 25 miles an hour. Now, would we work them? No. I mean, I didn't get off the highway and go into towns with the specific idea of working a city street. Now, have I stopped and written tickets on city streets? Absolutely. If for I had whatever reason I was cutting through on a city street and somebody's coming at me at, 20 over the speed limit, doing 45 and a 25, or 50 and a 25, yeah, I'm going to stop that. I mean, I've got the jurisdiction, and there's no reason you should be driving that fast over a speed limit in a small town. And happened rarely, but it happened. And like I said, generally, being highway patrol, we basically tried to stay outside of city limits and didn't try to step on toes and, work what the PD was supposed to be working. Well, I was going to finish up the video right here, but this dadgum road is busy. I'm going to go find a parking lot. Okay, so you saw me pull up in this parking lot, pulled up behind a building. This is the back side of my wife's store. If you hadn't seen that video, it's the one that's called Get Right Designs. It's our second business, or our first business, whichever. I don't remember how I titled it. So basically how I was going to end it is there is no good answer for how fast can you go, because you heard my tolerances. Most of the time they were about 8 to 10, sometimes 6 to 8. Now, that's with exception to the interstate. We do have an interstate that's about 20 miles from here. I'm not going to drive over there today. And when I got on that, it was a divided two-lane highway, 70 miles an hour. And I set my tolerances, depending on traffic, 10 to 15 over. And which 15 is a lot. I mean, that is a lot. You're doing 85 miles an hour. But there is so much traffic on that road. It's shooting fish in a barrel. You could sit there all day and just keep your bucket full, but unfortunately there's other roads that need attention, because if you don't pay attention to these smaller highways, they get to be a racetrack. So on the interstate we would do that, and again we'd have to cut medians. The difference out there is I rarely wrote warnings out there. If I went to the trouble to stop you on that interstate, traffic's so busy, it's so dangerous out there stopping cars, you got a ticket. I mean, I wasn't real tolerant of it out there, because speeds out there, literally close to the end of my career, I could sit out there any given day, and if I sit out there an hour and a half, I guarantee you I would get at least one over 100 miles an hour, probably two. And it's just ridiculous. I mean, what people think they can get away with, and then when they're upset when they get stopped for doing, 30 miles an hour over a speed limit, it's amazing to me. So that's generally where I stood on the interstate system. And you would often get the people that argue out there. And one of my big things I've done over the years is I would always ask people, okay, well, the speed limit's 70 out here. I got you doing 90. What do you think is an all right speed? What speed should I tolerate before I stopped you? Amazingly, these people always dug themselves a ditch. They would always say, 8 to 10 over or 12 over or whatever. And my response would always be, so why were you doing 90? If 10 over is okay to you, why are you doing 90? You're doing 20 over the speed limit. A couple of times I would stop people at 15 to 16 over, and they go, well, I think 15 over is not bad. My response to that would be, well, unfortunately I do. 15 over the speed limit's a lot, so you're getting a ticket. So now with all that, how fast can you go over the speed limit? I don't have a good answer. I mean, I had my tolerances and I worked with those most of my career, but with that said, I know guys that stop you at 3 over. I know guys that would write tickets at 5 over, and they're not wrong. Their tolerance was just shorter. I mean, it just didn't have as big a tolerance as I did. And those guys worked like mad. And I mean, they were really fighting to keep the speeds down. Hats off to them. And there are other divisions that stop at 2 and 3 over. And they're not necessarily looking for you as much as speed, but just for you breaking the law so they can investigate any other crimes that may be going on. Now then, would they ever write tickets? I would have to say probably at some point they did, just because people argue. I mean, there is no point in it. You're already caught. We're not picking people out just because of, oh, it's that guy, I'm going to stop him. We're just going by how you're driving. So the long of it is, or the short of it is, I guess, there is no good answer. If the speed limit's 70, do 70. If it's 65, do 65, because I'm going to say that most of the time you probably won't get hurt at 2 to 3 over, but I can't guarantee it. I mean, I don't know how everybody else works, and it is all at our discretion. I mean, I'm talking from PD officers, deputies, to highway patrol. All this stuff's at our discretion. What we see and we want to stop, we stop. And I can't tell you how everybody works. And so, sorry, I don't have a great answer for that. I can't give you the magic pill and tell you how fast it's okay to drive other than the speed limit. So guys, that's it. That's about all I've got for this video today. I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that I have, I'm asked a lot and was always asked a lot. Excuse me. And like I said, there's not a real good answer for it. Just do the speed limit. I mean, that's really the answer. And I can't tell you how to drive in that aspect. I mean, I think you should at least try to respect the speed limit and stay very close to it, because there's no guarantees out here, and definitely no guarantees of what officer you're going to get to stop you and what each officer is going to do. So, like I said, guys, that's it for this video. If y'all hadn't done so yet, please subscribe to this video. And if you hadn't checked out my other video, I'm actually wearing my shirt from Smokey CNC Woodworks. Go over and check it out. See what I've got going on over there. It's some pretty cool stuff too. So, anyways, guys, that's it for today, and I'll see y'all next time. Waiver, I still had some waiver room. The difference is on this, at 8.